Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us on Gabon 24. Our guest today is Ms. Ellen B. Thornburg, the new Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Libreville, Gabon. With her, we're going to discuss bilateral but also multilateral relations between the United States of America and Gabon in particular, but with also Africa in general. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here.
Okay, we're going straight to the point. You are the new Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy here in Libreville, Gabon. What are your mission, or what is your role in this title?
Well, thank you again for the chance to be with you on Gabon 24. And yes, I'm the new Chargé. I arrived 3 months ago. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very happy that I am in this role as Chargé at our U.S. Embassy in Libreville. Our top priorities for the embassy and for me are, of course, supporting Gabon's environmental initiatives, promoting regional peace and security, promoting economic prosperity, and very important, strengthening the people ties between the U.S. and Gabon.
And how are your prerogatives different from these of an ambassador?
They aren't. As Chargé d'Affaires, I'm the chief of mission. That means I have all the duties, responsibilities, and authorities as an ambassador would. The only difference is I'm not confirmed by our Senate. I have 32 years of experience as a senior foreign service officer with the Department of State. This is the third time I've now served as Chargé d'Affaires at an African embassy. And so I think that Washington has confidence in me that I can handle the job. So in all sense, except for the title, I'm the ambassador.
Very good. How would you describe the diplomatic relations between Gabon and your country, I mean the United States, at a time when international relations are experiencing a profound upheaval?
Well, they're excellent, I think. I hope the Gabonese agree. We were delighted that Gabon recently sent its ambassador to the United States. He arrived in the end of last year, just in time for the U.S. African Leader Summit. And at the summit, Washington was thrilled to receive President Bongo, who had a major speaking role. Another indication of our strong ties is the number of students that want to travel to the United States to study. I was in Port-Gentil last week. One of my priorities is also to travel as much as possible in Gabon and see this beautiful country. And my first trip out of Libreville was to Port-Gentil last week. The highlight of the trip was the afternoon I spent at a local school where I met a number of students, had a chance to talk with students and professors. But the one question that kept coming up over and over and over again among the students was, how do I study in the United States? So that level of interest tells me that we're succeeding, that we have a strong relationship with Gabon. And for your viewers who are interested in studying in the United States, for your younger viewers, they should go to our embassy website and look up Education USA, because there they will find all sorts of information that will tell them how to find a school, how to apply to school, and if they still have other questions, they can contact the embassy and we'll help them walk them through the process. I strongly encourage them to do that. Another indication of our strong ties are the number of U.S. businesses that are interested in investing in Gabon. That's increasing. We're getting more and more requests for information. And also the interest of Gabon businesses in exporting or doing business with the U.S. There they have the African Growth and Opportunity Act that they can take advantage of.
Okay, it is very important to tackle the economic relations with the United States. We're going to talk about the AGOA, I mean the African Growth Opportunities Act. What are statistical data, if any, on the economic partnership, in particular between this important institution and Gabon?
Unfortunately, I can't really provide statistical data. Gabon has not taken as much advantage of the opportunities offered by AGOA as some of its neighbors and some of the other countries in Africa. We wish they'd take more advantage. To that end, we were very, very happy when the government announced its new national strategy for taking advantage of AGOA. And a few weeks ago, I met with the Minister of Commerce, and we discussed this, among other issues, and how the U.S. Embassy could facilitate Gabonese business is taking more advantage of the opportunities offered by AGOA.
The other question is on the security, the security domain. Gabon sits on the United Security Council as a non-permanent member, but what is the position of the United States at a time Africa is claiming to have a permanent seat on the Security Council with a veto right?
We've been very happy to work with Gabon as it sits on the National Security Council. The Biden administration's strategy toward sub-Saharan Africa acknowledges that it's impossible to meet today's challenges unless Africa is part of the discussion. He has said clearly that Africa belongs at the table in every room where these discussions are being had, and in every institution where decisions are being made. So clearly we support Africa having a bigger role on the UN Security Council.
It's very important for Africa to be supported by the United States to finally come to the point to have this permanent seat at the UN Security Council. But the American President Joe Biden also talked about visiting African countries, and the question everybody is asking is if Gabon is going to be part of these countries to be visited by American president.
I would love to host President Biden here at our embassy in Libreville, but I don't know where he's going yet. He has not announced which countries. In the end, it doesn't matter. It would be lovely if he came here, but whatever countries he chooses to visit, it will be a symbolic first time for him to visit these countries as president, and another indication of the importance that he places on our relationship and our partnership with African countries.
Is there any way this embassy could influence the coming of the President Biden?
We can certainly try. But again, President Biden has clearly indicated his belief in that we need to even further strengthen our strong ties with Africa. He has stated at the African Leaders Summit in December, he declared that the U.S. is all in on Africa's future. If Africa succeeds, the U.S. succeeds and the world succeeds. So clearly, this is a major priority for this administration. And we can just cross our fingers and hope that he comes to Gabon. But I honestly do not know where he's going yet.
That would be very interesting to welcome President Biden here in Gabon, because today we see that China and Russia are expanding their presence and influence on the African continent. By organizing the U.S.-Africa Summit, is the United States trying to consolidate and strengthen its influence on the African continent? We think particularly of the military presence in the Sahel in West Africa.
Yes, of course. The United States continually seeks to strengthen our partnership with African countries. And the U.S. African Leaders Summit is an example of the priority that the Biden administration places on this. We're one of the few countries that has an embassy in almost every single country on the continent. So that's also a symbol of our long-time dedication and the importance that we place on our relationship, both bilateral and multilateral, in Africa. We offer partnership to the African nations. We spend billions of dollars every year supporting development, supporting energy infrastructure, supporting health, supporting education, supporting rule of law, good governance, and the list goes on throughout Africa. So this is my sixth African country, and every place we've been, we have been very, very active. Sometimes we're not visible enough. Sometimes we don't proclaim it enough, so people aren't aware of the programs that we're supporting, but we're there and we're active.
And beyond the security aspect, there was also economy with the U.S.-Africa Business Forum, which took place in parallel with the political summit. The question is, concretely, what can African countries really expect from that summit, the outcomes?
Well, it was very important that the Business Forum took place at the same time as the African Leaders Summit. Again, it shows our interest in, and the interest of American businesses, of investing more in Africa. Africa's integration to the global market and its demographic boom, because you're a very young continent. And the spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation that I see everywhere in Africa is very important to furthering the world's economy. So clearly we want to be part of that. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation consistently finances development and investment projects in Africa. At the Business Forum in Washington, they announced almost $400 million worth of new trade and investment opportunities in food security, renewable energy, infrastructure, health, and the list goes on.
And there is another important aspect from that forum, is that 15 billion US dollars have been promised by Americans. And what are the areas that are going to be targeted?
Some of the ones I've already mentioned, sustainable energy, health systems, agribusiness, connectivity, digital connectivity, again, all the big ones, but that's all part of that $15 billion.
Okay, we're nearly at the end of this interview, and the last question is if you can provide an assessment on relations between African continent and the United States of America.
Overall, I think they're excellent. I think we've just touched on some of the major areas where we work so well together, and we've also touched on some of the importance that the Biden administration has placed on strengthening our ties, already strong ties with Africa. One of the things I didn't touch on a lot was our security and defense cooperation, which in Gabon is very, very strong. I should have said this earlier, but I will say it now. We just finished talking about Africa in general, we just finished a U.S. Navy-led exercise, a multilateral exercise, which called Obagame Express, which Gabon has taken part of throughout, it's annual, every year, and they've even hosted it sometimes. Last week here, we also had a small exchange program with non-commissioned officers, and earlier this month, we had the visit of the newly appointed commander of AFRICOM, the U.S. African Command, based in Stuttgart. He came to Gabon, a special trip just to Gabon, to meet with the Minister of Defense and other high-ranking officials, which also shows the importance that we place on this relationship.
Okay, we've reached the end of this special interview. Thank you, Ms. Ellen B. Thornburg, for having answered our questions.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we also thank you for watching us. You can keep on following us on our socials. Stay with us for further news.